What is up, guys? Welcome back to Firearms and Fellowship. We are having a Friday firearms chat, and I am super excited to be joined by Dylan from Huntsville Guns LLC. Dylan, thanks for coming tonight, man.
Thanks for having me.
I know I had to hold your feet to the fire to get you to come on and do it, but we're gonna have some fun tonight. Dylan, I've been a fan of your channel for a while now, and I love the content that you're making over there. It's a little bit different from what other guys do. You're a gunsmith, but you give people a different look into what gunsmithing is, and why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about what you do over there?
Yeah. So I'm a small town gunsmith primarily, but I started the channel because I saw a kind of a topic that was undercovered. Um, the business side of gunsmithing, the day-to-day stuff, what it looks like to interact with customers, little projects, things that come in that aren't major show-stopping deals. There's a lot of YouTube channels that'll show you how to take stuff apart and put it back together. There's a lot of content out there already that goes over trigger modifications and various features of stuff. But I wanted to cover more of what it actually looks like to be in gunsmithing, the day-to-day. It seems to kind of be gathering a little bit of attention. But
Yeah.
like I said, specifically the business side, covering the money and bookkeeping, things of that. So
Yeah, there definitely
pretty
was a
straightforward.
gap. Definitely a gap from, kind of low level stuff like, sometimes I do on my channel. And then you got guys that do crazy projects that maybe
Right.
the home gamer would never even attempt. And so, yeah, I think you found a really good niche there. And you do a great job
Thank you.
explaining things. I was watching your video yesterday on the, what was that, the Ithaca?
Mhm.
And just talking about how to ease a screw out. There's a lot of people that don't understand that you don't have to go right in on it. There's things that you can do to make
Sometimes
it
it's best to
easier.
leave the hammer on the bench.
Yeah. So I mean, it's stuff like that that is really important to share on YouTube, and sometimes it gets left out for the
Yeah.
flashier stuff. And it
Yeah. Agreed.
doesn't mean that because it's not flashy that people aren't interested. They obviously are, because you're getting views
Yeah.
over there.
So there's a big um, group that covers disassembly, reassembly. There's a
Yeah,
big group that covers load, fire, unload. And so I do a little bit of that. I do some product review when I get new stuff in that I've never seen before that I find interesting. I cover that. But I really, um, a lot of the comments that I see on the videos are from people who are aspiring to be a gunsmith or to do more of their own work. And that's the crowd really that I'm trying to reach is like some of this is pretty approachable. I mean, not all of it is very difficult. So
right. Yeah, well, that's something I was thinking about earlier too before we got on. Um, it would be good for people to. It's always good to know what the job really entails. Um,
mhm.
Sometimes things get built up to be something that they're really not, and you also need to know what you actually need to learn to get into it. There's some three-letter things out there that make you think that. I think everybody knows what we're talking. I won't drag anybody through the mud, but um, it's important for people to understand what actually goes into it before they make a large investment. I know you've talked about that a little bit in one of your videos. You want to kind of just touch on that a little bit here, as far as
Yeah, for
what the
sure. So
expectations are.
so I think everybody starts at the hobby level, right? Most of us, we buy a gun and we have to figure out how to fix it, that kind of thing. But for me, the big impetus for licensing was when you start doing it for a profit, right? When you start working on other people's stuff, keeping it overnight, that kind of thing. Then you start getting into that legal area where you need to be licensed. You need to have insurance. You need to have an LLC. You need to protect yourself, but also play by the rules. And I don't remember what video I covered it in, but talking about like tooling, and tooling is a portion of the cost of being in this industry. But then there's also the legal and compliance side of it, if you will, where I have $50,000 to $100,000 in tools. I've got lathe and mill and that kind of stuff. That's a portion of it. You also have to pay for taxes and sales and use tax and license renewal, that kind of thing. You can get into the weeds pretty quickly if you're not careful.
Yeah, for sure. And especially the liability thing. A lot of people don't think about that, but man, that can really get you hung up and put in a bad place. So
for sure.
um,
You talk
we
about
got a
working
few
on
people.
somebody's firearm and it has the potential to harm somebody in the future. I mean, if you do something incorrectly, you definitely want to have some insurance in the game.
Yeah, for sure. We got some people jumping into the chat. Thank you guys for coming out this evening.
Yep.
We're going to be taking some questions. So if you have a query, put it down there in the comments, and we'll get around to it. I think we got quite a bit to talk about tonight. So yeah, the Ithaca, that's an interesting gun. I had a LC Smith a while back, and once I saw what goes on inside of an LC Smith, I didn't want to shoot it for one, because there's not a lot of meat there, and
Mm-hmm.
the springs inside of that thing are just ginormous.
Oh yeah.
So that was a firearm that I felt like belonged in the hands of somebody who would probably appreciate it more than I do. I'm not a big shotgun guy anyway, and it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't something I was gonna shoot. Have you messed around with some LC Smiths?
I have actually. I have a customer, probably one of my favorite customers, who is a big shotgun guy. Vietnam veteran, and he's been collecting for a long, long time. And so he's got a bunch of LC Smiths. He's got some Parker guns. He's got some Ithaca guns. Most of the big names he owns. And he brings them from time to time, cleanup kind of thing, or if he picks something up and wants to have it checked out, he stops by, and I get to figure out how to take another one apart.
Yeah, they're. I've heard they can be a little difficult to put back together.
Patience is the word.
Yeah, really, really neat guns, though, for sure. So, how long have you been a gunsmith?
It's kind of a complex answer. I have been licensed and working for myself for 5 years. Before that, I have a pretty long background in working on firearms. And then I did an apprenticeship before that as well. But here under my own license, 5 years.
Yeah. How long were you an apprentice? I'm sure that was probably a very valuable period of time.
That's the number one question I get on Livestream is, do I need to do an apprenticeship? And my answer overwhelmingly is yes. You can learn things in a shop doing the job that you can't learn from a book. And in person, like a Colorado School of Trades, absolutely. But some of the online stuff, that you just miss the meat and potatoes of the day to day. I would say 2.5 years. I did it as an apprentice, kind of on again, off again. The gentleman I was working for did some contract work, firearms repair work for the federal government, and so sometimes that would interfere with it. But about 2.5 years as an apprentice.
That's a pretty good amount of time.
Yeah.
You can, like you say, learning on the job is invaluable, because
Correct.
You learn so much faster when you've got somebody there that has been through the fire and can help you along. Jim Ashby, he's a great channel member. We're glad to see you here this evening, Jim. He says, I'm an air gunner, but I do have a question on front True Glow sight that is heated or pressed on. How would I remove that?
I may need some more detail on that one. If it's like a fiber optic insert is kind of what I'm envisioning, or maybe I'm missing the point of the question.
Heated or pressed on. I'm wondering if the whole sight is on the barrel. It might be glued on there somehow. Probably some kind of
Maybe. I
heat.
say I'd kind of need a little more information to know.
Yeah. Put it down there, Jim. Kind of. Let me see.
It's an air gun. I know that much. I know the brand name.
Yeah.
I'm not super familiar with the setup. If it's like a collar that goes over the barrel, it's either got some kind of adhesive or like silver solder under it. But if it's a sight that is specifically like dovetailed into the barrel,
Right.
or
Jim, you can email me a picture at join us at Firearms and Fellowship, and we can take a look at it when we get it here later.
See, I don't work on a bunch of air guns, but I do on occasion have them come through the door of the shop.
Yeah, maybe George McAllister is supposed to hopefully come on this evening, and that's his kind of wheelhouse is air guns, so he might be able to help us out with that.
Yeah.
Okay, Jim says he'll send us a picture. Okay. So, but yeah, that's it's so true. You know, with all the ads and stuff that are run for gunsmith training, it's good to have somebody out there that kind of talks about it. And I know Mark Novak has talked about it too. You got to get in the shop, and not only that, but you need to have some skills. You know, you need to be a little bit of a carpenter. You need to be you got to be able to run some equipment. You have to be kind of handy. You have to be mechanically adept to start with, because there's so many things that you can run into, and I'm sure you have horror stories. You know, stuff where you just had to do crazy stuff, and you had to use knowledge that you had gathered from, you know, other parts of your life. I run into it all the time, not just on guns, but all kinds of projects where it's stuff that I've learned from something else.
Soldering the lug on a shotgun barrel. That, I mean, if you got a plumbing background, that ties directly into what it is. I was talking with my cousin who is in the HVAC trade, and he's like, "Hey man, you're a little heavy-handed with the solder." that real world experience plays into it. I'm a little biased on the online gunsmithing or gun training. I actually graduated from SDI after I was licensed and in business as a gunsmith. It seemed like I'm a perpetual learner. I love to read. I love the more you can learn about a subject, the better you are. And so I went through their coursework to kind of get a better understanding of what they were offering. There's some merit there, but I don't think that it's going to make you a gunsmith out the gate.
Right. Yeah. I just can't imagine that you could do an online course and be ready to tackle some of the stuff that is going to come from you. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's it's an interesting conversation. Like I say, you don't want to drag anybody through the mud, but people need to know the truth. And like you say, it has some merit. You can learn from it, but you're gonna need more than that.
There's a difference in book knowledge and hands-on knowledge, and I think that's what makes the difference. To be a successful gunsmith, it's a step above being like an armorer. So a couple of weeks ago on a live stream, we talked about armorer courses, and so I've been to a bunch of SIG type stuff, and replacing parts versus making parts is kind of the impetus between the two, and it's really difficult to understand how parts interact and how to diagnose something that's broken and learn to repair it if you don't have it in front of you. Um, how parts interact makes a big difference in how you can make something.
Yeah. I was watching one of your videos where you were talking about 3D printing parts in your shop. Um,
Mhm.
that's, I mean, like even
It's a
10
weird
years
world we
ago, that
live in.
wasn't something that you could really even think of. But now it's
Yes.
kind of, yeah, you can do that sort of thing. And with the, especially, I'm sure, I don't do any of this stuff, but I'm sure that with the adoption of AI, that kind of thing is going
Hmm.
to be more accessible to more people. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, uh,
So a few years ago, I worked for a friend of mine, and he had a business making countertops, granite countertops, and solid surfaces. And we went to a training course and learned how to run a really fancy CNC machine, 5-axis CNC machine, and CAD design and development, things of that nature. And that for me was kind of the I see the light type moment where it's like, man, you can tell a machine to do something and it will absolutely make the part for you. It's pretty cool.
yeah,
3D printing is just making that more accessible to everybody else.
yeah, it's wild. We're living in just amazing times as far as um, what's coming. I mean, there's the technology that's coming out right now is kind of going to be a leap. It's going to be one of those
Oh yeah.
leaps, kind of like when we got the internet. There was a leap, and
Hmm.
just permeated into so many different things. So yeah, gonna be exciting. Uh, let's get into it. A few guns. Now you sent over some pictures,
I
and
sent a bunch.
yeah, we'll get into those here in a minute. I had a viewer that made a comment the other day that I think is probably worth talking about a little bit. Um, he commented on a Ruger 1022 video that I had done, and he mentioned, uh, Rugers can be inaccurate out of the box, and um, I have to say that's been my experience too. Basically, when I buy a Ruger 1022, um, we kind of go through this trial period together, and it either works out or it doesn't.
Hmm.
I don't like to mess around with them much because generally, so there's this thing called the bathtub theory, and so if you take a curve, it looks like a bathtub. Um, and you can think of a light bulb. A light bulb, you screw it in, and it either blows out right away or it lasts. And that's kind of
Hmm.
the curve of things. So when I get a new Ruger 1022 that just doesn't work new out of the box, I just move it down the road because I don't want to mess with it. Um, uh, that's been my experience with them. Now Rugers, the aftermarket for Rugers is crazy. You can basically
Huge.
rebuild the entire rifle and make it. You can make a pretty darn accurate rifle out of them. Um, I mean, Ruger could basically just sell receivers and people could build their
Hmm.
own. But you have any thoughts on that?
So I've kind of had a similar experience. Um, I don't order a lot of firearms for retail. If you called me and said, "Hey, I want to buy a 1022," I can order one for you. But I don't order a big inventory to keep on hand.
Yeah,
Of the few of them that I have had come in for reliability, most of them are coming in for upgrades, putting different whatever on it, trigger, or what have you, but kind of all over the board. Some of them shoot exceptionally well out of the box, and some of them will not shoot, period.
yeah,
Just kind of seems to be anybody's guess.
yeah,
I will say I've had the best results with CCI mini mags. I'm not being paid to say that. That's just an ammo that I can stand behind. I think that every one I've ever had will cycle mini mags.
yeah. Yeah, the ammo makes a difference.
Hmm.
I haven't like I like to shoot. I like Ely
Hmm.
out of my bolt guns and stuff, but um, semi-automatics like the club and stuff like that is not always great. There's ammunition specifically designed for semi-autos, and you get better results with that. So sometimes it's an ammo thing, just using the
Hmm.
wrong ammo in a semi-auto. Um, but yeah, I think that's just kind of it's such a mass-produced,
Hmm.
firearm. Um, they're good guns, though. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, I don't have any bad I've got, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them, so, I can't sit here and bash them. I like 10/22s, but, yeah, that is a thing that
I
sometimes.
I wonder if, like you say, so they make tons and tons of these things, and everybody is eventually going to have a quality control issue. It's just the nature of the business.
Yeah,
But I wonder if part of their um, the ones that I've had come in that don't group, won't zero, they're kind of all over the place. Try a couple of different types of ammo. Um, that old adage about having break in, I wonder if that doesn't affect it some. You have a brand new gun and it won't shoot, and then you put 500 rounds through it, and then now magically it shoots better. It,
yeah.
Speculation, but I wonder if that doesn't have something to do with it. Some of them just need a little break in, maybe.
It could be. I don't know. And I don't know maybe you could answer this. Those are hammer forged barrels, right?
Hmm.
So maybe there is a longer break-in period with a hammer forge. I don't know. And it
Well,
may
if,
just be
if
that
they,
they make so many guns that it
hmm
seems like a lot of them, or a larger portion of them, don't shoot
right.
accurately out of the box. It's just that they make so many of them. Um,
Well, I will
yeah.
also say this. I'll tread lightly. Sometimes it's not the rifle.
Well, that's always the
It,
case
it,
with
it,
me.
it it's the reality of the world I live in. Sometimes it won't zero means you can't shoot.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Not you specifically. I'm joking.
yeah, no, that I'm sure is fairly often the case. That
Yeah.
let's see, there was one other, and then we'll jump into. You got some cool pictures over here. I'm interested to see what you're
I
going to
have
say about
I've
them.
dropped a few eggs in there for you.
Yeah, the other one was the Harrington and Richardson 700. So I've done a couple videos on that rifle just recently, and if they're not a well-known rifle, really. They're
Right.
a great rifle. It's a semi-auto. Let me pull up a picture for people that just aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, it's not one that I have come in every day of the week. I can probably think of one has come in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I don't think they made very many of them, but
Hmm.
22 mag in a semi-auto is just it's a hard cartridge to get to feed reliably. I mean, Ruger gave up on it. Um,
Yeah.
But the 700, I don't know that I've ever had a failure to feed in that rifle, that's saying something with a 22
Yeah.
mag semi-auto. We could talk about the PMR 30 later. But uh, the big gripe you'll see when you go online that people that do have these is the trigger. The take up is about a quarter mile long.
Yeah.
Um, doesn't feel great at all. Let me pull up. I've got a picture of the trigger. It's unique. It's a unique trigger, and people always want to know, can they adjust this? And there are some things that you can do to it. They're not much,
Hmm.
um, but we'll kind of see how it operates. Like you can kind of polish the surfaces and smooth things up a little bit, but as far as just the slack in that trigger. Let me get that
It
one up
very much
here.
reminds me of the Springfield '87,
Yeah,
um, the gill gun, the shape of the receiver, the trigger setup. It's kind of reminiscent of that.
yeah,
Um,
it is.
and
Uh,
they also don't have great triggers.
that's funny you say that because there was one other gun I was going to show, and it's a Stevens 76A,
Yeah.
which is yeah, say, but yeah, there is a screw on the back side that you can take up
Hmm.
that slack. Um, like I say, it's not going to make the trigger feel that much better, but at least you're not um, waiting for the trigger to come back. But yeah, you can just kind of turn that screw, and once it clicks in, then you're in the ballpark. You got to
Yeah.
tweak it a little bit, but yeah, somebody had asked about that, and that's something I see on that rifle all the time. Now, as far as the weight of the trigger, I guess you would have to come in and fiddle
And a
with that
spring
spring.
adjustment.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but yeah, there's a there's those 76A. Uh, boy, when I got this gun, it was a mess. I mean, just grody, grody, grody. You know, they had these
They're
gill
usually
guns.
pretty dirty.
Yeah, who knows when the last time this one was shot before I got it, but when these came out, the powders were dirty, and that's why they had
Hmm.
those gills in there to get some of that crap out of there. Like the cartridges hadn't caught up to the semi-auto world yet. They were still running super dirty powders. But yeah, this is a gun you see in all kinds of configurations under different
Hmm.
brand names. Um, yeah, that 87, there's a whole bunch of them,
Yeah.
but they're neat guns.
I call them like hardware store guns.
Yeah, yeah.
They sold everywhere under different names all across the board, but they're all pretty much the same operating system.
Mhm. Yeah, and, people call them click clack guns because
Hmm.
not all of them, but most of them, I believe, um, you fire and that bolt doesn't come forward until you
Hmm.
let go of the trigger, so it sounds different. It makes a
Yeah.
different kinda sound than most semi-autos, but they're neat old guns, and this one cleaned up pretty well, and shoots good. Been happy with it, but
I
yeah, it's
like
funny you brought
probably
that
my
up.
favorite feature of them is that you can lock the bolt closed.
Yes,
Um, it's super cool feature that I think is kind of understated on the platform.
yeah, you can't see it in this photo. Unfortunately, I don't have one in the deck, but yeah, there's the charging bolt moves in and out. There's like
Hmm.
a ball bearing detent deal in it. So yeah, you can lock it closed and kind of get the advantage of a bolt action
Hmm.
rifle in the semi-auto. And of course, you can that way you could shoot single shot shorts and stuff like that.
Oh
But
yeah, I've always
uh,
thought it'd be cool to have one set up to run a suppressor. You run, subsonic like Ely subsonic through it. It'd be pretty
That
cool.
that that would be cool. That brings me to another thing that I wanted to touch on real quick. Um, so I bought a CZ 455 a while back. It's that short American up there, and it was a consignment gun at our local getting spot, and it's such a nice gun. I knew
Mhm.
who I found out who sold it, and I asked him one day. I'm like, man, why'd you sell that? It's got good trigger work, and it's scoped up right, and it's just a great shooting rifle. And he said, well, I wanted one, but I wanted a suppressor, and I didn't want to thread that one.
Yeah.
Well, what I didn't realize is that, and you could probably talk more about this than I can. Um, Barrels have they have tension in them, and sometimes when you thread a barrel, that tension can change, and it can
Hmm.
warp the barrel. Maybe you can talk more about that. I know enough
So
about it to be dangerous.
I won't go nerd level deep, but anything like a barrel the way that they are manufactured, they have stresses in them, right? And if you change the dynamics of that barrel, so the outside or the inside, or it's the same with free floating a barrel. It's why that's much more common now than it was 50 years ago. Once you change the dynamics of the barrel, you change the harmonics. Um, it's there's a whole bunch of science that goes into it, and like I said, I'll
Yeah.
spare that for another time.
Yeah, that was something I had never really thought about, but it makes sense. I mean, you're gonna have when you have something like it's just like a piece of wood. Sometimes you'll
Yep.
cut a piece of wood and it's got that tension in it, and it'll spring up on you. Like when you're cutting, on the table saw,
Yeah.
you can get some dangerous situations from that. But yeah, just something I hadn't really ever thought of, and yeah, something to think about. But
There's a
let's
company a couple of years ago. I don't know. I think they've rebranded at this point, but they made Straight Jacket was the name. They made barrels that had as basically the barrel and then an outer tube. And so they would put the barrel under tension. You would tighten the nut on the muzzle end, and it would draw that barrel under tension. And the concept behind it, the marketing behind it, was that it makes a much more repeatable barrel because it's the same shot to shot. I actually have a 6.5 Grendel barrel around here somewhere that was made by Straight Jacket. Kind of a cool concept.
Yeah. And we were talking about hammer forged barrels earlier. I wonder if hammer forging maybe takes some of the possibility of that out of it. Be something to look into. I don't know. But yeah, let me pull up some of your pictures here. There's some stuff going on we need to talk about.
I wanted to leave you enough to have some questions.
Okay, I don't know if you sent me these in any order specifically. Nope. Okay. All right, what do we got here?
So this is one of those things in gunsmithing where you talk about the legal side of it that I hated to see come in the door. One of my regular customers is a general contractor, bought this gun from a dealer. It was there on consignment, and it never got registered. So the USAS 12 is one of those weird assault weapons ban kind of era guns. And after they were imported, made by Daewoo, imported by a couple of different companies into the US, this one was sold to an individual, and then he passed away. Well, the family never did anything with the gun for decades. And then somebody needed money somewhere down the line and consigned the gun with an FFL. Well, the FFL didn't know what it was. And they brought it to me for some kind of repair work. And unfortunately, they no longer have the ability to own it. So it was never registered, and it can't, after the fact, be registered. And so that one belongs to a police department now.
Wow. Well, and that was probably a deal where you had to tell them about it. I mean, it's just one of those things, you weren't doing it to be an a-hole or anything like that. Just,
I did not want to be honest with you. The history behind these is very cool. There's not a lot in circulation, and the ones that are registered. I think they're either destructive devices or AOWs. I don't remember off the top of my head. But if you can find one in circulation, it comes with a lot of additional paperwork. There's a couple of photos I think that I included of that particular gun. I had it for probably 4 or 5 weeks before I could do a Form 10 to get it out of here.
When were those made?
80s,
ballpark,
mid 80s.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, there's a project car too we were talking about earlier.
Oh yeah. What is that, by the way?
53 Bel Air.
Nice.
I have a lot of hobbies, and all of them are expensive.
Is it a straight 6?
It is.
Sweet.
It is.
Things
Yeah.
will
So
run
very
forever.
unique design in a gun. Has kind of some AR type features. Um, it came with either a 10-shot drum or a 10-shot mag or a 25-shot drum. Very, very cool. There were even rumors of a full auto version being imported pre assault weapons ban. I've never seen one in person though.
Oh, what kind of version was that?
A full auto.
Oh, a full auto. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. I've never seen one. Uh, I have to say it. Yeah, it's kind of like a cross between a AR and a AK. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a
And very cool features. The dust cover folds up instead of down like AR.
yeah.
A unique gas system. A very AR like trigger setup in it. Very, very cool. I wish I had the opportunity to spend some more time with it. Um, but the ATF was pretty clear on what had to be done with it. And so rather than having to destroy it, I did a Form 10. And it's basically how law enforcement agencies acquire their, for those who don't are not in the industry, it's how law enforcement agencies acquire short barrel rifles, full auto weapons, things of that nature.
Okay. I'm gonna pull this up, and then I think Jim said he sent his message, so let me look for that real quick.
Yeah, very, very cool firearm. Surprisingly light recoil for a 12 gauge. It's only chambered in 2 3/4, but very, very mild recoil for a 12 gauge.
Okay. Rather than maybe I can just show you this rather than go through the machinations of. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah, that's a new one on me. It looks like it's plastic and it looks like it's attached, like fused to the barrel.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, yeah, it almost. I can't really even see any kind of like seam.
Yeah,
I
that's what
mean,
I say. I don't see a seam or anything where it would be removable. The insert would have to be removable. So the piece of fiber optic.
there's another. Yeah, it looks like it's all one
Yeah,
piece.
yeah, it looks like. Oh, you may be fighting an uphill battle there, bud.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah, I got a pretty good bead on it, and I can see there's a molding line when they
mhm.
stamp that stuff. I can see a line
Yeah,
running up the back side of that thing. So I think it's just on there, Jim. Um, where he says, where would you?
it
I
depends on
don't
what you
think
want to
you.
do.
Yeah,
If you, I mean, if you're putting a scope on it and it's in the way, the short answer is to just cut it off of there. Uh, Probably not your favorite answer, but if you're
yeah,
looking to replace it with something else, let's say if it's injection molded plastic, which I'm assuming if it's got a parting line, it's molded.
yeah,
Um, I mean, you could cut that off and then put a dovetail there and then slide one in from the side.
yeah.
Uh,
That'd be a possibility. Uh, it's okay. I'm not okay either. Um, okay. Uh, what kind of fellowship? We'll get into that later if you want to hang around. All right. What do we got here?
this is um, we talked about one of my live streams. We talked about those rare guns that come in the door, like one of those things that you see once in a lifetime, and this is in that category. So this is an L1A1 that belonged to. You see the SPF marking there behind the
Yeah.
selector. So that's the
Hmm.
Singapore Police Force, and so this is a sear cut L1A1 that never had an auto sear installed. So it was never sold
Okay.
as a full auto weapon. And these were imported pre-assault weapons ban, and they were only sold to law enforcement, not specifically to law enforcement agencies, but individual officers. And so this gun came in and was sold to an officer with the LA County Sheriff's Office. And it was actually one of the officers that was in the North Hollywood shootout.
Oh, really?
Pretty cool provenance and paperwork that goes along with it. But it belongs to one of my regular customers. He brought it by to brag about it one day.
Yeah, that is interesting. And
It's one of those categories the ATF likes to not make a ruling on. So they're called gray area guns because it
yeah,
has a sear cut, but it isn't full auto capable. 15 years ago, there was a bunch of people trying to get the ATF to make a ruling, and they never would. Pretty cool stuff.
yeah, that is. And you talk about provenance. That's something that I've really learned a lot about
Mm-hmm.
working with the Remington Society of America, and how
Oh yeah,
important just the story behind a firearm can be. And it doesn't always have to be anything huge, but um, it's something to pay attention to. And like if you buy something that's kind of unique, and you can get the story behind it. Like if you know the original, the person that purchased it, say you buy
mm-hmm.
an old Colt from the 50s or something, and they have the receipt. If you can keep that kind of stuff together with the gun, it helps
Oh yeah.
for sure.
So with this gun, um, there were only about 4 companies that imported these guns,
Mhm.
and they were marketed to a very specific group of people. And the guys who imported them, most of them are no longer in the industry. Most of them are retired, and if they're still around, they're living on a beach somewhere. And so finding that paperwork now is much more difficult than it would be 20, 30 years ago when it wouldn't have been as important.
Yeah, yeah, that is cool. Glad you put that one in there.
I think there may be 1 or 2 photos of that. I don't remember what all I sent you. I knew we were going to talk about tools, and
Yeah, let's
this
go ahead and
is
jump into tools for a bit here, and we kind of break it up a little bit because that's something that you and I have messaged back and forth about through your videos, is tools. And there's some tools that, man, you just almost have to have.
oh
And
yeah,
uh, I'll start off with just one that we both agree is probably the first or second tool you want if you're messing around with cleaning up guns and doing that kind of stuff, whether you're a gunsmith or you're just a home gamer like me, and you buy
mm-hmm.
old 22s and clean them up. And that is a carding wheel. Let me pull this photo out of the way so people can see. Yeah, a carding wheel. It's just a really fine steel wheel brush. I'm not sure what the gauge of this wire is, but
Yeah, they're
I run
tiny.
this on my. It's super soft. You could almost
Mm-hmm.
put your tongue on it while it's running, and it wouldn't hurt you. But these things will take off rust without getting into your bluing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just super super handy. I've got the part number, and I know you are as passionate about these as I am. Um,
Oh yeah,
they're not cheap. I think they're
no, they are not.
probably, well, I don't know, $40 or somewhere in that neighborhood. But yeah, if you're cleaning up old guns and stuff, man, they will save your hide. I hate to see guns where I know somebody's gone too hard at them, and they
Mm-hmm.
could have been gently cleaned up, and that's
Oh yeah,
that's one way to do it right there. Um,
I probably use my carding. So I've got 2 of them. I have one that I run on a buffer. It was in my video that I put up yesterday, actually. It's a little bit faster than you normally want to spin one, but I use it just for general cleaning. It'll take carbon and all kinds of stuff. It'll peel it right off without affecting your finish. But then I also use one in the drill press at a slower speed, and it's great for like if you're converting rust. So you boil a gun to convert the rust. That'll card that scale off there real quick without damaging anything.
Yeah, and if you are carting rust off, you want to have a clean wheel to work with. Like mine's always greasy because that's what I use it for, is getting rust and grime and stuff off with. But if you're using if you're using one to do rusting stuff, bluing, you definitely don't want to have a bunch of grease on there. So maybe everybody needs 2 or 3 probably.
Gropay is making a lot of money on them.
Yeah, they're man. Everybody I know that messes around with this stuff and cleans up guns and conserves guns. Everybody's got one, and a lot of people don't know about them. So I try to mention them anytime I can because they're so handy. Now, like for a guy like me, I don't re-blue guns. I'm learning about it, but like when I go get an old gun and it's got rust spots on it, stuff like that, like I can take oil and a copper penny and get that stuff off. And we're talking a copper penny, not a penny from today that's got zinc in it, but what was it, cutoff date 63 or something like that.
Oh, you're gonna put me on the spot. 80 or 81. After then, everything went over to zinc, and then copper plating. There's probably 20 pounds of them in a bucket over there behind the machine.
Yeah, that it works incredibly well. Won't mess with your bluing, and just an easy way to get. It takes a little bit more elbow grease, but
so
it's cheap.
I'll give you a little trick with those. Your magazine tube out of your 22s.
Yeah.
Like a brass or an aluminum magazine tube, you can spin that while you run it across that carding wheel, and all of that kind of grime that gets on those rods, it'll clean that off of there, and it won't scratch up your magazine tube either.
Okay, I hadn't thought of that because that is kind of an issue sometimes, is getting those things clean.
They get kind of sticky. They get grit on them, and they don't want to go in and out of the outer tube. You can run it across there real quick, and it'll slick them up real good.
Okay. You probably don't want to hold them on there too long because that is a little bit
you keep it moving.
Yeah. Just want to make that clear for anybody.
Yeah.
You have any tools that you come to mind that?
I grabbed some stuff, kind of the things that I use every day, multiple times a day is kind of what I was thinking of. Probably my go-to is that guy right there. Normally in my videos, you'll see it. It lives in my little apron in one of the pockets. Just a good stainless dental pick, but also a set of tweezers. These are kind of my favorite right now. Trying to think of the best way to describe this. A lot of what I do involves machine tools. And so I'm not going to go grab you the lathe because it's not, every guy doesn't have a lathe.
Nobody wants to show off picking up a lathe either. So
right. Well, I'm not that guy, I promise you. But yeah, a lot of common sense stuff, really. 82. I knew I was right. A set of pliers that do not have teeth on them. Just a flat set of pliers to not mar up your surface. These 4 or 5 times a day, I'm using these. Forceps, same thing, something to hold, work holding, fixturing, that kind of stuff. I have a lot of everyday use items, bits in a driver kind of thing. But the carding wheel is pretty high on my list.
Well, and to piggyback off of not marring things up, man, I got the 5th degree one time from a video where I had tapped, just nudged a sight over. It is. And
Is it at least polished? Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I got the third degree over that. And yeah, look, you don't want to go whaling on your firearms with this, but every gunsmith has one of these on his bench, I promise you. And they
Yep.
get used a lot, but they're polished very well because yeah, any kind of markings on your hammer face will get transferred to whatever you're tapping on.
Mhm.
But yeah, this is an indispensable tool, and this is actually a little big for um,
Yep.
most
Let me
things.
see.
Um, I
So
think this one's probably a 4 ounce and probably a 2 ounces. Is that
that
brass?
is that's a 3 ounce brass, and
Yeah,
it's mushroomed for a reason because it gets used all the time.
yeah.
But I do have a I don't know where it's at the moment, a 4 ounce ball peen that I keep on the bench. I say it's on the bench, but it's not currently on the bench.
Sean Zimmerman says, "Guess you're not worried about damage or scratches of finishes with dental picks. What say ye?"
So I think I understand the question. So take are firearms parts allowed on live streams? Let me ask this question.
Yes, as far as
Okay,
I know, um, it's not a firearm. It's just a piece of
correct.
metal.
So receiver extension off of an AR. This is some of those demilled M16 kits. Um, there is not a way to clean the inside of that star chamber without one of these.
Yeah,
And uh, assuming that you are going to scratch the finish assumes that you're probably using this for what it's not meant for. That's kind of the way I read that question. I'm not
yeah,
scrubbing the
yeah.
outside of a gun with one.
Right. Yeah, you're not cleaning out the lettering on a blued barrel with
Right.
it. Um, Country Rimfire is in the house. Thanks, buddy. He says, "Sorry I'm late." Also first time here. Woohoo! Nice axe in the background. Thank you. That's a Jaguar. I just picked that up not too long ago. Still learning how all the switches work on that thing. It makes all kinds of sounds. So yeah, we may talk about that in a little bit. Let's see. Sean jumping in again. Brass hammers, brass punches. Yeah, for sure. Um, we got both of them on the bench. But yeah, the ball peen hammer is just you use it. It's one of those things. Like use the tool correctly. I mean, you know what you're doing. You're not wailing away on
Mm-hmm.
something. Um, just one of those deals. So, ha
I
ha.
sent you a picture actually that will reiterate that point.
Oh, okay. Let me
There
see
are
if I can.
there's some videos that I'm kind of working on right now, trying to make a cohesive video out of, and I sent you some pictures of. It should be a handgun. There's a couple of different pictures of the same gun.
Oh, in the stack that you already sent me.
Yes.
Okay. Let me get those pulled up here. Okay.
That's one of my favorite machine accessories, by the way. The
So
tapping
what?
attachment.
Okay.
So it's a for the machining nerd in me, it's a high speed tapping attachment. So it's got a Morse taper on one end to use in the drill press or in the milling machine.
Yeah.
And then it uses collets that you can see in the jar off to the side to hold your taps. And then as you pull down on the quill, it threads in. And as you pick up on the quill, it automatically reverses the tap to come back out.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Very, very cool attachments. They make them in a bunch of different sizes. And this one I picked up at an estate sale for an absolute steal, and I had to have it.
Yeah, that is cool. I've never seen one of those. Country Rimfire, I'm a professional lead guitarist. Love that guitar you have. Thank you. Oh, I'm like I say, I'm messing around with it. We'll see. I put new strings on it the other day. I hadn't been playing lately, and so I had to put some extra slinkies on there because my fingers were getting raw. And I tell you what, I like the 8 to 38s. Those are nice. I hadn't never played with those. Yeah, Country Rimfire. Thanks for having me, man. We're glad to have you here. Thank you for
Thanks for joining
joining
us.
us. Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get into the next one here. This looks like a bad day.
This is what happens when you take a ball peen hammer to something that you should not take a ball peen hammer to. So this gun is actually in the shop right now. One of my subscribers reached out to me. He bought this as a project. And so the damage was already done when he got it. He didn't realize it was quite as bad as it was. So this is a Savage 1907. I think there's 2 or 3
Okay.
pictures of the same gun in there.
Okay.
And the disassembly on these is a little foreign to some people. It doesn't come apart the way that most people would assume. And so somebody got it into a place where they couldn't finish getting it apart, and their solution was to take a hammer to it. And so that's what it's here for. One of my favorite rimfires project. Yeah, you can see kind of the ears on the back of the frame are bent.
Yeah.
It's pretty rough.
So were you able to
sent it
do
to me to get
anything
it
with it?
apart, and now that it's apart, we're
Okay.
going to have a conversation about what it takes to get it fixed up. The whole thing's going to have to be refinished. There's significant amount of work left to do to get it to a functioning firearm again, unfortunately.
Well, I think this is a good time to kind of talk about like the situations that you probably run into more often than people think. They bring in a firearm that the value of that firearm is significantly less than what it's going to cost to actually
Mm-hmm.
fix it, make it functional. And so then it becomes how valuable is that particular firearm to you? If you could touch on that and how often that happens.
Yep. It's one of my least favorite conversations to have is to tell somebody that something that their grandfather owned or something that somebody left them isn't financially worth repairing. Um, Everything
Yeah,
can be fixed. I say that all the time. Everything can be fixed. Should it be fixed, and is it affordable? And so I like to approach it a couple of different ways. I have a video a couple of weeks, maybe a month ago, that I put out about parts guns. And so pretty regularly, something like this walks through my door. Somebody's already done the damage, and I will normally, if it's not a sentimental object, it's something that their grandfather left for them, I'll normally buy them for parts because the
yeah,
parts that are left in this handgun are worth more than its together current state. And so if it's a sentimental gun, I try to be reasonable. Labor rates can kind of be adjusted a little bit, but realistically, something like this, where you're talking about a complete refinish, you're talking about some pretty serious metal work, you're talking about sourcing parts for 100-plus-year-old firearm.
yeah.
It adds up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, just to give people an idea, on something like that. I mean, how many hours are you looking at? Because it's got to be just crazy.
I can tell you, to get the gun apart, I probably got 3 hours in it
Yeah,
just to get it apart without damaging it anymore. To fix the frame, fix the slide. And when I say fix, you have to understand that it's not going to be like it was originally. The damage has been done at this point. Metal
yeah,
has been removed. And so to put it back into a functional state and to refinish it, there's an hour or two of finding parts online and getting them ordered, another 4, 5, 6 hours in metalwork just to refinish a handgun, something that's probably $500.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah. It escalates
like I said,
quickly.
it's my least favorite conversation because
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
usually isn't the answer that the customer wants to hear.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's situations where they're like, "Oh, this guy," they just they don't understand what goes into all that. Like you say, you might spend a couple hours just looking online for something, and
Mhm.
that's time. That's
And then you
that
get a
time is the same as what you spend in the shop. If you're not in the shop, then it's the same. And
yeah,
sometimes that's hard for people to grasp. But
yeah. Fortunately, this one it's kind of a good example. Parts are available. They're not necessarily cheap, but you can find parts or a parts gun because they made enough of them. But if you get into something that's a low production and there aren't many of them to begin with, um, I'm making parts, and that's even more expensive than my time to sit down and find them online. But if I'm firing up a machine, it costs because it
yeah,
ties up my time from doing something else. Yeah, poor gun, man.
yeah. Jim says I paid $400 for a 1953 transoceanic receiver of great grandpa's. Sometimes you just have to do it. Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
If it means something to you, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And I
you
do
know,
I do a bunch of repairs for people that cost isn't an issue. Whatever it takes to fix it and put it back right, that's what they're interested in.
yeah. Let's see what else. There was a couple. What do we got going
I
on
tried to
here?
give you enough ammo. This is one of my pet projects currently.
Okay.
Um, this is a Star Z70B, Spanish-made subgun. I love the Cold War era and the firearms designs and kind of the guns that we got from that. And this is one. A Bowman, I believe, is who had them. Had torch cut parts kits, and I managed to snatch one up. I'm not in any great rush to work on it, but it's on my to do list.
Yeah. Just for people that don't know what torch cut parts is, can you kind of run that down for
Oh
them?
yeah, uh, I forget that not everybody is a gun enthusiast.
Right.
So torch cut is so a gun that's made outside of the country, in order to be imported, has to meet a couple of requirements. And
Yeah.
something like this, where it was an open bolt, it could be fired fully automatically or whatever the case may be. It meets a criteria that the ATF deems isn't legal for ownership. They have to cut them with a torch, and there's requirements that they have for how wide the cuts have to be, where they have to be placed through the receiver, things of
Yeah.
that nature. And so if you look at the picture, you can pretty clearly see that the tubular receiver on this gun has been cut in 3 separate places. Um,
Mhm.
so it ultimately is destroyed, but can be reassembled with a lot of work.
A lot, a lot of work. That's a labor of love right there, brother.
Yeah.
But when you get it back together, you got something.
Oh yeah,
Um, what caliber did you say that was? Was that like
that's a
9
nine
thirty?
millimeter, believe it or not.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of operation is that? That as far as how does it operate?
So it's got a charging handle. It's on the front, kind of similar to an MP5, on the
Okay.
opposite side from what you're looking at here. But originally it fired from the open bolt.
Okay.
And that's part of the reason that it wasn't allowed to be imported complete. Um, and it's kind of a blowback, just a direct blowback action. Some cool features. So the end cap um, is what holds basically everything in the gun. And then the barrel, if you look at the front of the barrel, it's got kind of an odd shape. It's tapered, but it's also keyed. And
Uh-huh.
so the front of the shroud is keyed as well. So the barrel goes in and then has to rotate, kind of like an AR bolt. to
Okay.
lock in place, but it comes in from the back of the receiver.
That is interesting.
Yeah, different
Yeah,
design.
the open bolt thing. I'm not real familiar with what the issue was with that. Um, I know I've seen on was it Guns of America with Mike? He's had some open bolt 22s on there. I don't know if they're allowed now or if they're. I'm not sure what the deal is on those, but have to look
I don't
into
know
that.
the law off the top of my
Yeah.
head, but I know that the issue with most open bolt guns is that they're very easily made to fire full auto. And so that was one of the ways to regulate that is basically no open bolts. I know for a time period they were allowed. There are a few guns on the market who use an open bolt system, but they're few and far between.
Yeah.
Semi-auto
I
guns,
don't
I should say.
I don't think I've ever laid hands on one, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
And so part
yeah,
of the process of putting this back into a functioning firearm is to make it where it fires from a closed bolt position. And so the bolt has to be modified so you can't use a full auto bolt in it. There's a bunch of conversion stuff that goes into, you can get way into the weeds on the stuff that has to be done to it to make it legal.
yeah, I can't imagine that there's very many guys that have done this, really.
Yeah. There's a community of guys who build torch cut guns, but it is a very, very small part of the gun world.
Yeah, very, very specialized. But it's cool. I mean, I can't even imagine how much work we go into putting that back into operation.
There's 2 or 3 hours worth of TIG work alone just to put the receiver back together.
Yeah. Wow. Maybe we'll get to see it fire one day. That'd be cool.
If I ever get the time to get around to it.
Well, if you're like me, you got enough projects to probably last you well into retirement.
Yeah, I've got 3 or 4 lifetimes worth.
Yeah, me too, man. They pile up, but that's all right. We'll get around to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do we got here?
Oh, I don't remember why I dropped this one in there. Very unique operating system. This is a Mauser pistol, one of the early Mauser semi-auto handguns.
Okay.
This was a project that a customer brought me, and now I can't remember what I did to it, to be honest. So if you look where the side plate has Mauser stamped on it, that is removable from the frame. And that's how you access all of the internals of the firearm. Very cool design. It's definitely has German engineering behind it. You can tell just by looking at it. But super cool gun. Like I said, these are the ones that I enjoy the most. Things that you don't see every day. You can only work on so many ARs before you get tired of them.
Yeah, for sure. As a gunsmith, I mean, is that what you look forward to? Is work like this, just something different? Than I mean, I don't mean this to sound demeaning, but anybody can slap together an AR. I mean,
correct.
Sure, there's things that you can do to the AR that some people can't do, but there's not a lot of people that can work on that gun. You know,
right?
There's
And
not people that take torch cut guns and put them back together. That's a whole nother level.
That's kind of why I got into this, because my personal taste progressed from the basic, everyday, common stuff into the more historical side. I've got a pretty good collection of like World War II type stuff, Cold War era type stuff, and the way that they go together is very interesting to me. How they approach design, and like in this case, this is somebody's gonna eat me alive in the comments. This is a Mauser 96, if I remember right.
You will be corrected, I promise.
Yeah, and I will be on tomorrow's news.
Yeah.
But parts for these are not super common. This one, if I remember correctly, predates World War One. The history that this thing has seen is very fascinating to me. The hands that have held it and what it's done is super, super cool.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I enjoy about collecting old guns and shooting them is just the process, like how they got there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the different designs. There's so many different ways to skin that cat, and it's
Mm-hmm.
always interesting to see how different designers go about it. And you can kind of see their fingerprints on the guns that they built. It's almost like they see them in a certain way, and you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of follow a designer throughout his career at how they design guns. And like you say, like where have these things been, and what have they done, and who carried them? And
Mm-hmm.
it's just that's one of the fascinating things to me. You know, I'm not like a big game hunter or anything like that, but I love firearms. I love how they work, and the designs that went into them, and the art that went into
Yeah.
them. And
Well,
yeah, like
look
you
at the
say,
AK-47.
yeah,
How many different iterations of the same gun are there? One country develops it and changes something slightly, and then the next country picks that up, and it's completely different, but they're the same platform.
yeah.
The design that goes into it is very fascinating to me.
Well, and I mean, just to look at we'll talk about two very common guns, the AK and the AR, and how different they are. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, just it's just wild. Um,
Yep.
yeah, that's a cool one. I wish YouTube would let us hold guns
Yeah.
on live streams, because you can really get into like some details when you can hold it and show people
Mm-hmm.
things. Yeah, it's just unfortunate that you know
Yeah.
they won't
The
let us do
powers that
that.
be have decided that we can't do that.
Yeah, like yeah, I understand they're afraid somebody's going to do something bad on YouTube, but they're going to do it anyway, regardless. But Smith and Wesson,
Model
22.
41.
Yeah, I've seen one of these before, and
This is one of
that's
my favorite 22 handguns ever made.
is it?
This one I actually just left early this week on consignment. It was here for consignment and it's sold and gone. Um, Long production history, incredibly accurate, huge cult following. So they're the guys who like these, they really like them. They collect every different iteration, but a unique kind of approach to the slide mechanism.
Yeah, it is.
Uh, Very, very cool guns. And if you don't own one, you probably should.
It kind of reminds me of some of the newer Keltecs as far as the slide design.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like they've got some 22s that kind of maybe they were thinking about this gun when they designed a polymer version. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that is. I have seen those before. I haven't shot one, but I'm glad you said that, because if I do ever see one again, I will probably pick it up.
This was
Um,
an early gun. This one, I think the serial number puts this one in the 60s, pretty early in the production history. Um, they're Smith and Wesson still sells this. They still, I think now they're
oh, okay.
15, $1,600 for a new one.
Wow.
This one, like I said, was here on consignment, and it went to a guy in North Texas for half of that easily. Um, but every one I've ever shot's been accurate. They are just really great all around guns. Cool takedown as well. So you pull down on the trigger guard. Uh, it's kind of a unique, kind of like a PPK.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if that slide design has something to do with the accuracy of it. Um,
They're pretty heavy too, believe it or not. They This is a 5-inch barrel, and they make a 7. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think they also make a 10-inch.
I think
And
the one I saw, I think, was a long one, and that's what
yeah,
drew my eye to it. I was like, "Wow, look at that thing."
yeah,
I don't remember it having that grip on there, but you know, I'm a '70s model. I can
they
be
fit the hand
remembering all.
well. The features are very ergonomic. The slide catch is really the only thing I don't love on them, but it's something that you get used to, or the safety, if you will. Um,
Yeah,
but they said they're cool and all steel construction, so they've got some weight to them.
that is cool. Swamp Donkey Off Grid. That's a name there, man. Model 41s are as good as it gets. Right on. I like
I
it.
agree.
And then we've got Baked Bean 420. Want a good concealed carry as my first. Any recommendations? Um, I've got a recommendation that I can throw in there, but you want to jump in there first and say
Um,
it's kind of a loaded question,
yeah.
but yeah, see what you got.
So um, probably the three most recommended handguns I talk to people about for concealed carry: the Sig 365 in its variants, the new Smith and Wesson Bodyguard, I believe it's called, the 380, really good option. Um, and the last one just ran out of the back of my head. But both of those are available with the manual safety. Both of them have a good track record. They're slim, good round capacity for the size. They fit the hand well. They shoot well. Those are kind of my two go-tos.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with either one of those, really. I know guys that carry the 365, they love them. They're both kind of the same size pistol,
Mm-hmm.
really easy to conceal. 380's just a good, it's,
Yep.
you know, people talk about knockdown power and all that. 380 is something you can put on target.
Yep.
Um, and nobody's going to want to stand in front of a 380. So you throw all that stuff out the window. Now, if you're hunting bear or you're out in the woods and you're going to run across a hog, then, let's talk about a bigger bullet and go from
Mm-hmm.
there. But when you're talking bipedal things, 380 is fine. And
Yep.
it recoils soft enough for most people that don't shoot a lot, honestly. They just
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, the Bodyguard 2.0, man, I
Hard
I
to
rave
beat for the
about
money.
this pistol all the time. I bought one last year, and yeah, I don't know who they got over there at Smith and Wesson designing their guns the past few years, but they've really hit it out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
The M&P line, the EZ for man, like that's one of the only guns my wife can rack, and that's a selling point right there. Hopefully, they come out with the Bodyguard 2.0 and an EZ. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see the Bodyguard 2.0 and a 22 so that people can practice inexpensively with it.
I
I
got
think
one
it'd
of
be a
those.
great, I think it'd be a great gun for them.
Yep.
So we'll see. But yeah, either of those are great choices. Surrender Parks
I will
is,
caveat. I will say that whatever you buy, you need to train with it. Uh,
yeah,
you need to be comfortable with it, because if you are not comfortable and you're not going to use it, it does no good to carry it.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. And that's another reason I say, some of these pistols, like most of the Glocks, you can get in a 22
Mm-hmm.
and train with it that way. So it'd be nice to see the new Bodyguard in a 22. And plus, it'd be just a fun pistol to shoot. So we'll see. Surrender Park says Glock 48. Yeah, I mean Glock has lots of great pistols too. What's their 380? Is it the 48? Something like that. I
Make
was
me
I
laugh.
was never a
I don't
Glock
remember the
guy.
numbering.
I never liked the way they felt in my hand, but I recently bought a 43X,
Mm-hmm.
and man, it feels really good. And it's got a red dot on it, and I've had fun with that. It's been a fun gun to shoot. Yeah, there's
The reason I didn't mention the 43 or 43X was it doesn't come with a manual safety.
Yeah.
And from the firearms training standpoint, that's one of those things that I like to drive home. I personally own a 43X to carry it all the time. I have a car that I carry all the time without manual safeties. But for somebody who is new to firearms ownership, a manual safety is a good thing.
I couldn't agree more. Especially if you're not out shooting it and training it with it. Yeah, it just, and I like that's one thing about the Browning designs, like the 1903. Of course, that's in my logo. You got a grip safety on there. If you're not gripping that gun, it's not going off. And Smith & Wesson makes their easy line with the grip safety on it. I think it's a good thing for, like you say, if you're not shooting a lot and you're not training a lot, it's just one less thing to kind of go wrong. So a good question. Excellent question. Let's see. We'll grab into a couple more here. Yeah, Brian Walter. Hey, man. I hope you're doing well, and I hope your wife's doing well. Haven't heard from you in a while, so good to see you. Glock 43X. I worked with Brian for a while. He's a good guy, really good guy. Swamp Donkey, Off Grid. I don't know where you guys come up with these names. It must come out of a generator or something. I don't know. I like them. That's kind of funny. Been running a Taurus G3X9. Great budget option. Yeah, Taurus makes some good firearms.
Metal magazine. That's the best thing that Taurus went to when they went back to a metal body on the magazine. Hats off to them.
Yeah. Surrender says agree, not really good for a first one. I'm sure he's talking about something without a safety. And I focus only on the concealed part of the sentence. Yeah. It's funny, but when you're talking about concealed, people really think, a lot of times they think a small, short firearm is more concealable, but it's really just the grip. I mean, I've got a Colt 1902 that's got a barrel that's a mile long on it. I can stick that in the appendix and nobody know the difference between that and my bodyguard. It's just,
I had a customer come in today that was concealed carrying a new 365 Fuse, which is a 21 round. I mean, it's a pretty significant grip with an extended magazine, and he had it at like the 4 o'clock position. And so you can see the magazine. He's walking around with a tail, but you can conceal appendix carry and the holster options that are out now. You can conceal a pretty good size handgun, even a skinny guy like myself.
Yeah, you really can. That's where I carry appendix. It's just comfortable, especially if you're getting in and out of the truck. As long as the slide's not too long, you don't have to mess with it. I guess some people worry about shooting some parts off, but if you're carrying a gun that you're worried about that, then yeah. Let's see. Let's get back into some of these pictures here. Are you doing okay on time?
Yeah, we're good. I got all the time in the world.
Right on. Let's see. What's this one here?
Oh, this is the Mauser shotgun project I'm working on.
Was there another picture of this one? No. Okay. There's one.
Maybe. I don't remember. I sent you a bunch. I wanted to have
I think there's just this one here.
So this is a series that I'm working on. I actually have another video in editing that I'm getting ready to push out. This gun, a friend of mine is in construction, and this was in an attic of a customer's house. Customer didn't want it. He didn't know what it was, and so he brought it to me. And I've never seen one in person before. So
it looks like it's been sitting in an attic in
East Texas,
South
no
Texas.
less. It's pretty rough. It's got some rust going on, but it's a 16 gauge, so it's basically a pre-World War II Mauser that is converted. It's been rebarreled to 16 gauge, so it's got a magazine box modification. It's got a bolt head modification. Super cool. To me, anyways, I nerd out on it. But it's here for kind of a all around once over. We're going to do some woodwork on it. We're going to do some metal work. I've got a video on straightening the barrel and taking dents out. It's just a pretty good project gun if you need some video content.
Yeah, that's gonna be a project, but that's one of those ones, you'd be surprised how much you can clean up a gun like that,
Mm-hmm.
and bring it around. I mean, it's always gonna have the battle wounds, that you just can't get rid of, but, um, yeah, there's you can make it it's probably gonna be like a wall hanger, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. It
Yeah.
for me, it's the history that I'm saving. It's not the firearm itself. It covers a part of firearms history that isn't well known, not to me, anyways. So post, um, now I can't remember, not Geneva Convention, but post World War One, Germany's in trouble and their armament has to be reduced, and so this was one of the ways that they did that. Well, there
Yeah.
are only so many of them in existence. Not a super valuable gun, not highly collectible, but it's a piece of history no less.
One of the things that, I've as I've been collecting over the years, I've seen, so there were some guns that were used for the lend and lease program. So in Europe, before the wars, a lot of those countries disarmed their citizens,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't have enough firearms in the country to fight a war and train their
Oh yeah.
soldiers with. And so we sent a bunch of firearms over there. I can the leatherneck that we talked about earlier. Um, Yeah, there's several in here that we sent over. I think this Mossberg that's sitting on the couch was one of them. The 46M. A lot of the training rifles, the
Mm-hmm.
Savage. Yeah, there was a bunch of those, but it's just kind of funny to look back in history and don't make that mistake.
Yeah.
Don't disarm your citizens and leave yourself open to that because yeah, we sent a bunch of rifles over to Europe to help
Mm-hmm.
their soldiers train. They were 22s. I mean,
Yeah.
they needed something to teach their soldiers with.
I've
But
got a Arasaka Type 99 trainer here. Same
yeah,
concept. It's basically a piece of black pipe with a receiver threaded on the end of it, and it's
hmm
to teach people how to use the bolt and to where the features are. It's not a
yeah,
fireable gun, but they had to do what they could to teach people.
yeah. The Savage NRA match is what I was trying to think of.
Mm-hmm.
That was one. After World War One, all those soldiers came back and they wanted to shoot, and
Mm-hmm.
so there was a lot of shooting events and clubs and things like that. And the gun makers here caught on to that, and they made a bunch of 22s that were full size,
Mm-hmm.
um, that were accurate and yeah, that was a big thing. People, I don't think a lot of people realize how big shooting matches were after World War One, before World War
Oh yeah,
Two.
rimfire especially.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So that's a neat part of history and something that I've
Mm-hmm.
learned about just through collecting and kind of stumbling on some of these rifles. It's like, what is this? And that's one thing that George McAllister and I talked about numerous times is it's kind of different to, if you just read about a rifle and the history, but when you have one in front of you and you can look
Mm-hmm.
at it and touch it and read about it, it's just a totally different thing. It's just more immersive. And
Yeah,
I invite everybody to get into that. Find
you're
find
actually
something that,
interacting with history.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's see if we got any more left.
I, I sent you a pretty good bit. I don't remember what all we've covered so far, but
I think I've gotten through all the ones that you've sent me. I think there was like 10 or 12 of them.
yeah.
Um, let's see. Brian says the safety concerns are valid. If inexperienced, go with the Ruger SP-101 Wheeler, a wheel gun.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, you know, a revolver is a great way to go. I mean, you pull the trigger and it goes bang. It's super heavy trigger pull,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, probably a good choice for a lot of people. Now, don't go out and get a snubby 357 because you're not going to want to shoot it. You're
Yeah.
you're not going to want to practice with it. It's kind of funny. My mom, that was the first gun that she trained on. Went to firearms training with, was a 357 uh, snub nose. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it'll beat your hand up. It beats my hand up. I don't like shooting one. I've got an airweight 357 and I hate shooting
Mm-hmm.
it. But if I'm going out in the woods where there's hogs and black bear and stuff like that, then yeah, I'll carry that. But yeah, like you said earlier, get a gun that you want to train with.
Yep.
Get something that you want to shoot, and something that you enjoy shooting for sure.
And realistically, it's a hobby, right? So you're going to buy something that you can conceal carry and that you're comfortable shooting, and you're going to take it to the range, and that's going to develop into multiple gun ownership. Statistically speaking, most people who own one gun own multiple.
Yeah,
And so find something that you're comfortable carrying that's going to do the job well, and then find something that you can take to the range and dance around with.
yeah, absolutely. Swamp Donkey coming back in says, "Don't forget the J Frame Smith. Great
Mm-hmm.
carry revolver, better grip than the Ruger to me." Yeah, I mean
And there
J
are
frames.
tons of them.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, you can find some on the cheap. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see. Brian says the Remington 870 shotgun was once used in classrooms to teach firearm safety. Yeah. Um, I I don't want to date myself here, but I can remember in high school, guys having shotguns in the back window of their pickup truck.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
different world. Um, and I think there's some schools now that are starting to have some shooting programs again,
Mm-hmm.
competitive shooting, which I think is great.
Sporting
It's
clays.
yeah,
Sporting clays seems to be on the rise. There's a couple of districts in my area that are getting kind of the foundations of a team together to get into that, and I 100% can get behind that.
yeah, I think it's great. I mean, that's the thing is that it teaches people that it can be a sport, it can be a hobby. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you see guns on the news all the time and it's all about killing,
Mm-hmm.
most people that own firearms just aren't that way. Um,
Right.
so kind of disrupt that narrative. Let's see. Trash Panther, hey buddy, we're glad to have you in here. I love to carry my Smith and Wesson Model 65 Lady Smith, but those 357 rounds are punishing. Yeah,
Yeah, they're
that's
rowdy.
they are. Uh, They'll put a lump on your hand. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That is for sure. Let me look through. So, do you do any gardening? Are you going to put a garden
I,
in this year?
I do. So I have 5 acres, and I used to put in a pretty good sized garden every year, but we've had pretty bad drought conditions the last couple of summers, and so nothing has done exceptionally well. But right now, I have a couple of fig trees that are potted that are ready to go in the ground when we kind of get out of this little cool snap that we're in. A couple of blueberry bushes that are ready to go, and I was convinced by my wife and my daughter to grow pumpkins this year.
Okay,
And so I've
very
got a
give
bunch of
yourself some
pumpkin
room.
seed. It's a story for another day, but I was
Yeah,
convinced that we're going to grow pumpkins this year. So I've already got all that stuff ready to go. And then just the basics. We do a lot of tomatoes, peppers,
yeah.
things of that nature.
You got any favorite varieties of tomatoes?
Uh, I'm trying to think. Bitter Boy probably is my favorite. It does the
Yeah,
best for me. But I grow a bunch of Romas. So my wife is big into canning, and so we're
yeah. Romas are
sauces and
great.
sauces. Yeah.
Yeah, Romas are great for canning. We grow
Mm-hmm.
uh, um, what is it? Better Boys or Yellow Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is? Lemon Boys. Sorry, Lemon Boys. And yeah, some of the indeterminate plants do really well around here. Um,
Yeah.
just they get so big though. But
Yeah.
you know, the indeterminates they grow all the way into the fall, so we actually
Mm-hmm.
get a bumper crop towards
Yeah.
the end of the season. Um, yeah, where my garden gets smaller every year because
Same.
it's just uh, there's so much work that goes into it,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of things that I do to try to minimize the work. I actually cover mine in that ground cloth so that I'm
Yeah.
not contending with weeds all year. But that's something I love to do every year. I love the produce, and the best part
Mm-hmm.
of it is giving produce away to
Yeah.
neighbors and friends and stuff
We
like that.
usually okra is usually the overabundance, and so we're giving you
Oh
just
yeah.
bags and bags and bags of it away.
It grows so fast, and they
Mm-hmm.
get, I mean, just super tall. We're gonna try corn this year. I tried it a couple years ago, and corn beetles got to all of it and just knocked it all
Yeah.
down. But we're gonna
We
try.
so I've got probably 6 inches of good topsoil, and then it gets into just the darkest, thickest gumbo. And so corn has never really done well. I've tried a couple of the what is it, the G10, like the sweet corn varieties, and they
Yeah,
do so, but not nearly what it should.
yeah, for sure. Man, I was looking for my glasses. I was gonna read something real quick, um, but I can't see them in here. I'm at that age where if I don't have my glasses on, it's hard for me to see.
I keep a
Have,
set on the
have,
bench.
yeah. Um,
I still have great vision. I can read your license plate from where I'm sitting right now, but working on small stuff all day right here in front of my face, it's starting to catch up to
yeah.
me.
Um, you want to kind of fill some of the people that just dropped in on your channel and
Yeah.
what you talked about over there. I'm gonna go grab my glasses real quick, and I'll be back in just a minute.
Okay. So the channel's Huntsville Guns, primarily gunsmithing. I do a little bit of hunting content too, but not a whole lot of it. And I focus more on the side of what the gunsmithing business looks like. I do some product reviews, I do some disassembly, reassembly, but really the target audience I have for my channel is those that are aspiring to be a gunsmith or want to get a little bit deeper than surface level kind of hobbyist. So we talk about the money side of things, purchasing firearms from customers, parts guns, what repairs cost. Try to be as straightforward as I can without putting a dent in my pocketbook as far as what I'm making on things, but um, profit margins and things of that nature. And then um, a little bit of tool related stuff as well. What tools I'm buying, what tools I'm using for the job, that kind of thing. I have a pretty big audience, it seems, as far as what they're interested in. One of the videos I published yesterday or the day before is a much more in-depth repair video. So what's wrong, how to determine what's wrong, the diagnosis steps, the steps to clean up uh, the solder that was on there, the resolder, just to kind of get into the more than surface level of gunsmithing. You've been using
Yeah.
a straw.
He's got a great channel over there. I've been just enjoying have watching his videos, and I'm so glad that you came on tonight. It's been a great conversation, and you got a lot to share with people. And it's a little bit different when you got two people. I know you got your videos where you sit and kind of visit with the chat, but it's fun to kind of bounce back and forth and get them involved too. So I'm glad you came on, man. It's been really cool. Um, Arc Living
I have a
says,
question for you.
yeah,
What are you reading right now?
I am reading. This is the firearms book that I'm reading right now.
Oh, great.
Firearm Bluing and Browning
Mhm.
by R.H. Angier. It's just something that I've never really done, and
Mhm.
I've got a couple barrels over here in the corner that they're squibbed. They're not good for anything. They're going to be good barrels to practice with. They're off of old Remingtons.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of as far as firearms. That's what I'm looking at. I
Anything
want to
outside
try
of
it.
the gun world you're reading?
Man, I'm gonna get into it in a minute. I read a lot of the Bible. Um, as far as like, I used to read a lot of nonfiction, and I just don't anymore. Like, I could give you. We talked about it a little
Yeah.
bit in the chat the other night. Some nonfiction books that I would recommend to people. Um, but I read a lot of nonfiction stuff. I like to learn and
Yeah.
like to
Same.
learn how to do things. And so yeah, that's a lot of what I read. How
So
about you? What do you got? What are you reading?
I grabbed a couple. I'm reading 2 or 3 books at a time these days, just whatever is interests me. But right now I'm working through Asimov.
Oh, okay.
Very stimulating read. It'll
Yeah.
definitely make you think while you're reading it instead of just toning out. But I got one that I wanted to share. I knew you would probably enjoy. I just picked up this copy of C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters.
Okay.
This is 1946. This is like the second or third printing of the book. It's in not great shape, but I got it for a steal. And so if you're in the religious reading category, that's a good one for you to look at. And then
I'll put that on the list.
I just finished this one. So I had the opportunity to sit down and have dinner with Chad Robichaux recently. And this is one of the books that he wrote. It's about the we'll call it Afghanistan ordeal, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and with this being the 3-year anniversary. So I just finished reading that. This is not to brag or anything, but I have a signed copy of it.
Oh,
And I
nice.
just finished that one.
It's always nice to get a book that's signed.
Yeah.
I bought. I think I've mentioned this a couple times. I'm gonna brag on it again. Okay. I picked up the Remington 22 book by Roy Marco and John Guide, and of course it's signed. This is like if you're into Remington 22s, this is kind of the holy grail. They're out of print.
Not
so
easy to find. Yeah.
Yeah, they're stupid expensive, but I was out there in Vegas with Remington Society in January, and of course Roy was there, and he had come across a couple that were in a warehouse, and he brought those out and sold one of them to me at a very reasonable price.
Nice.
And so yeah, he's gonna send me a letter with it too, so that it has some provenance, so that I can hand it down to my daughter. And some of these books they're worth something later on. She might not appreciate what it is, but maybe at least be worth something to her.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always good to talk about what we're reading, and I appreciate that about your channel, is that you talk about that on your channels, like what are you guys reading? And we try to do that here as well. Talk about some of the foundational, I'd say, firearms books,
Mm-hmm.
Brophy's one of them.
Yep.
That one's one of them.
The
There's
Brownells
several.
books.
Yeah, we could, if anybody's interested in a video about that, we can talk about that. Let me get some of these comments up because they've been waiting for
Yeah.
a minute. And um, yeah, Arc Living. I've been using straw instead the last couple years. Seems like it does the soil good. That cloth, it's too expensive for 100 by 100.
Mm,
Yeah, straw is a good thing. I actually grew onions in straw the past couple years, and they didn't get real big. I've never grown big onions here in Oklahoma, but it was a different way to do it. And
mhm.
every year I've done it, they've gotten a little bit better. So, yeah, straw is kind of a cool thing to play with for sure. Swamp Donkey, thanks for the chat, fellas. Hey, man, glad to have you in here.
Thanks
We
for hanging out.
appreciate you. Yeah, we love doing this. Brian says, Smith 3913 Lady Smith was an easy ankle carry for me. 9mm and easy to retrieve. Okay. I'm not
Never
familiar with
liked
that.
ankle carrying.
I, I'm a
I wear
skinny guy.
elbow boots
Maybe
all
that's
the
what
time,
it
and I never
is.
liked it.
Yeah, I have ankle carried. What is it? Not the baby Browning, but the Colt 190.
Oh, 3?
Not the 3. That's a bigger one. I think it's a 8. It's a little
Yeah,
25.
yeah.
Yeah. I always get confused because there was a Browning 1908 and a Colt 1908, and they were different.
Yeah.
I think the Colt 1908 was the 380 1903, and the but anyway, yeah, the 25 little 25 Colt with the grip safety and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I've carried that on my ankle, but anything bigger than that, I don't know. I couldn't carry like a snub nose
Walking
38
around with
down
weight
there.
on your leg.
Yeah, but there's guys that are bigger than me that probably could. So, Arc Living, reckon the Bible is pretty darn good nonfiction. I can't disagree there. Um, uh, I love reading the Bible, and you a Bible reader?
I am.
Well, let's read some Bible. We're gonna finish this up tonight, real quick. So I've been in Luke, and man, these were the worst glasses. I grabbed the wrong ones. I'm gonna have to tough it out tonight, guys. I'm sorry. So Luke chapter 10. I'm gonna read part of this verse, not the whole thing, but it's something that really touched me. And every once in a while, there's a verse in the Bible, a chapter in the Bible that just speaks to you a little bit differently and
Mm-hmm.
touches you in the heart. And so I'm gonna read this, and then we'll talk about it for a minute. After these things, the Lord appointed other 70 also. So I didn't realize that after the 12 disciples, there was 70 others that he appointed to go out and heal and bless people and send them 2 by 2 before his face into every city and place, whither he himself would come. Therefore said he unto them, the harvest truly is great. There's a bunch out there, right? But the laborers are few. There's just not many to go out there and pray and save. Pray and ye therefore the Lord of the harvest, that he would send forth laborers into his harvest. Go your ways, behold, I send you forth as lambs among wolves. And when you go out and you preach the word of the Lord, you will be met with opposition. You will be. It's just Um, but God is with you, and He's going to talk to that in just a minute. Carry neither purse, nor scrip, nor shoes, and salute no man in thy way, because you serve the Lord. And into whatsoever house ye enter, first stay. Peace be to this house. So he's staying wherever you go, you stay there. Don't move about. You don't want to move into a house and then leave. Just stay there. Plant your seed is what he's saying. Plant your seed. It's basically what he's saying is start a church. And if the Son of peace be there, your peace shall come, rest upon it. And if not, it shall turn to you again. And in the same house remain, eating and drinking such things as they give. For the labor is worthy of his hire. Go not from house to house. So, yeah, you enter a house and do the things that they do. And, again, don't move about. And into whatsoever city you enter, and they receive you, eat such things as are set before you. Become part of that community. And that was a big thing back then. The Jews had these laws. They were really strict laws, and that was one of the things throughout Jesus' gospel that he butted up against. It was like, quit focusing so much on these rules. Let's focus on the core of what the message is. And so that's what he's saying here. He's like, if they want to serve you pork, eat the pork and don't complain about it. And heal the sick and that are in. So he gave these people the power to heal the sick. And say unto them, the kingdom of God has come nigh unto you. But into whoever city you enter, and they receive you not, go your ways out into the streets of the same, and say, even the very dust of your city, which cleaveth on us, we do wipe off against you. Notwithstanding, but ye be sure of this, that the kingdom of God is come nigh unto you. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever been in a city where you just weren't comfortable, just didn't feel good. I was out in Vegas in January, and the whole time I was there, I was ready to come home. It just did not feel right. I don't know if there's cities like that, but that was definitely one for me. Woe unto thee, Gerasans! Woe unto thee, Bethadians! For if the mighty works have been done in Tyre and Sidon, which have been done in you, they had a great while ago repented, sitting in sackcloth and ashes. But it shall be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon in judgment than you. And thou, Capernaum, which are exalted in heaven, shall be thrust down to hell. He that heareth you heareth me, and he that despiseth you despiseth me, and he that despiseth me despiseth him. And I'm getting there, guys. And the 70 returned again with joy, saying, Lord, even the devils are subject unto us through thy name. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from the heaven. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and all over the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Notwithstanding, in this rejoice not, that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice, because your names are written in heaven. And this is right here. In that hour, Jesus rejoiced in spirit and said, I thank thee, O Lord of heaven and earth, that thou hast these things from the wise unto babes. Even so, Father, for it seemed good in my sight. And what Jesus is saying, thank you, Lord, for putting this into the hands of the regular people, not those in power, not those that are knowledgeable, not those that sit on high places. He put this on you and me, regular people, to go out there and preach the word of God. And he gave them the power to heal. And that's just such a powerful message, I think. Um, I don't know how many times I've read that, and I never caught on that there was 70 people after the 12 that he gave that power to and entrusted that power to, even though they weren't the brightest minds in scholarly religion or whatever. Um, Regular people, but they believed, they had followed Jesus, they had listened to him. And we can go on later in in this book, even his disciples who had followed him and listened to him, seen him with their own eyes, heard with their own ears in the last days of Jesus, didn't realize that he was in front of them. He was with them 3 times. They did not know. And finally, at the last, when they broke bread together the last time, he said, I am here. I am with you. I've told you all these things must happen, but you didn't see. You didn't really believe. And yes, that's the message I leave you with tonight. We try to always finish up with something like that. Brother, thank you so much for coming on with me. I had a blast visiting
Thanks
with
for having
you.
me.
And I hope we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, for sure. I had an absolute blast. Thanks for having me. Thanks for those who hung out with us this time. This is not something that I'm super accustomed to, so I'm getting a little further out of my wheelhouse, but I enjoyed it. I very much had a good time.
I'm glad you came out, and yeah, it's kind of hard to get out in front of everybody and talk about stuff like this because none of us are experts in all of it. And I mean, even you're a gunsmith, but you don't know everything, and I
Correct.
don't know everything. But we do this because we enjoy it. We enjoy talking about firearms and other things, and so it's a back and forth with you guys. And I hope everybody in the chat had a good time, and I hope that people that watch this video later enjoy the content that we put out. I think we had a great show tonight, and guys, put it in the comments if you liked what we did tonight and if we should do it again. Arc Living, I kind of feel like Luke 15 was wrote for folks like myself. Hard to get away from. Yep, there's chapters and verses out there for all of us for all times, for sure. We're gonna hit a few more comments, and then I think we're gonna roll out of here real quick. Sometimes to really know a neighbor, you gotta exchange stuff. I think one of you has to need something for the other, and yeah, it's a give and take. You got to have relationships with people for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, man, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm sorry that was so putting your feet
We're
to the
good,
fire.
man. I enjoyed it.
I hope you enjoyed it. And man, let's do it again. Thank you, brother. Love you. Love all y'all in the chat. And we'll see you next time. God bless.